"Oh, Evelyn, you'll never have a house like your sister's," my parents chuckled, the words slicing through the room like they were nothing more than a playful joke, but I felt every ounce of their doubt like a weight pressing against my chest. I had spent decades quietly keeping our family together, tending to every holiday gathering, every birthday, every challenge, always ensuring that no one felt left behind, yet here I was, sitting in the same dining room where my accomplishments had never seemed enough. My sister, Linda Thompson, with her gleaming suburban home in the heart of Connecticut, always seemed to cast a shadow I couldn't escape, her life on display in perfectly curated Instagram photos and casual boasts during family visits, and though I smiled politely while listening to their laughter, inside I began to hatch a plan that would let my own work and persistence finally shine. I started by quietly investing in renovations and updates to my house in the quiet town of Wilton, blending elegance with warmth, adding touches of charm that spoke of a life well lived and an eye for detail. From the hardwood floors refinished to a rich honey tone, to the kitchen counters gleaming under soft lighting, and the garden meticulously cultivated with roses, hydrangeas, and a small orchard of apple trees that I had always dreamed of tending. Every step I took was calculated with patience and precision, ensuring that when the day came for my family to visit, they would witness something unexpected, a reflection of my own taste, my own care, my own achievements. As the days passed and the family scheduled yet another weekend visit, I prepared for the moment that would allow them to see the results of my labor, walking through each room, imagining the gasps and surprise that might ripple across their faces when they realized the true extent of what I had accomplished, knowing all along that the value of perseverance, humility, and quiet dedication would speak louder than any boast or comparison. And so, as the car pulled into the driveway, and the familiar voices approached my door, I felt a sense of anticipation that mingled with the steady pride of someone who had finally carved out a space entirely their own, and I opened the door with a calm, knowing smile, ready for the moment that would redefine how my family viewed me, ready to let my house, my labor, and my vision speak for themselves in a way that words never could. And as Linda stepped up the walkway, her eyes widened, a pause caught between disbelief and admiration, and in that moment, I understood that patience, subtlety, and thoughtful planning could create an impact far greater than any immediate comparison, proving that while laughter might once have been dismissive, it would now be replaced with recognition and awe. After the initial shock of seeing my home, Linda stood frozen on the front porch, her hand gripping the railing as if it might somehow keep her from stepping inside, and I could see the disbelief in her eyes before she even entered, the kind of disbelief that comes from expecting one thing and encountering something entirely different. The living room welcomed them with the warm glow of carefully chosen lamps, the polished oak floors reflecting the light in a way that made every piece of furniture seem to shine, and the artwork along the walls told a story of decades spent collecting memories rather than merely showing off wealth. And as my parents followed behind Linda, their eyes widened in surprise, shifting their glance from the house to me with a mixture of pride and astonishment. I guided them through the kitchen next, where the marble countertops and custom cabinets created a sense of understated elegance, the breakfast nook filled with sunlight streaming through windows overlooking the backyard, where the apple trees and rose bushes I had nurtured for years added a feeling of serenity and accomplishment that no photograph could ever capture. And I could see that even my parents were starting to reconsider the words they had spoken with such certainty a few weeks ago. Linda tried to maintain her composure, attempting a polite smile as she stepped into the formal dining area, her eyes darting to the hardwood floors, the hand-painted chandelier, and the delicate china displayed in a cabinet that had been in my family for generations, and I could almost hear the internal calculation of surprise and envy as she realized that this home had a soul, a warmth, and a personal touch that her perfectly staged house could never replicate. As we moved through the hallways, each room revealed another layer of thought and care, from the guest room adorned with cozy quilts to the home office lined with books I had accumulated over the years, each book a testament to knowledge, patience, and the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. And I noticed that the slight tension in my parents' posture had relaxed into something softer, an acknowledgement of what I had achieved with my own hands and vision. Linda finally whispered something under her breath, a mixture of admiration and shock, and I could not help but smile, knowing that my careful planning and dedication had created an impact far beyond what words could have done. And as we reached the back deck overlooking the garden, the late afternoon sun casting golden hues across the trees and flowers, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment, seeing that my efforts had not only surprised them but also subtly reminded everyone that true value is measured in care, intention, and perseverance rather than size or grandeur. I led them to the cozy seating area outside, where a gentle breeze carried the scent of roses and freshly cut grass, and as we all sat together, conversation began to flow naturally, the laughter now tinged with respect and genuine appreciation. And even Linda, who had moments before seemed almost startled, now joined in, realizing that there was something in this home, in this life I had created, that could not be bought, copied, or displayed superficially. The day continued with small gestures of admiration, compliments offered not out of obligation but from a sincere recognition of effort and taste, and I could feel the warmth of validation enveloping me. A quiet triumph achieved not through confrontation but through patience, attention to detail, and unwavering belief in my own vision, and as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the garden and home I had built, I knew that the laughter that once mocked me had been replaced with a deeper acknowledgement, a celebration of persistence, creativity, and the quiet power of quietly achieving something meaningful and authentic. As the afternoon sun mellowed into early evening, the atmosphere in my home had shifted completely, a warm and comfortable energy filling the rooms where moments earlier there had been tension and silent judgment. And I could see in the eyes of my parents a sense of pride and realization that perhaps their earlier assumptions had been misplaced, while Linda continued to circle the rooms, her gaze lingering on details she had never anticipated, from the smooth finish of the hardwood floors to the carefully curated collection of family photographs that lined the hallway, each frame telling a story of generations, love, and resilience, and I watched her quietly, allowing her the space to process, knowing that her internal acknowledgement of my efforts would resonate far more strongly than any words could convey. I guided everyone through the den, where shelves of books reflected a life of curiosity and growth, and the leather armchairs positioned near the bay window invited contemplation, the sunlight casting golden streaks across the room, creating a sense of warmth and welcome, and it became clear that the combination of thoughtful design and personal history had transformed the home into a space that spoke of character rather than mere luxury. Linda finally paused by the kitchen island, running her hand along the smooth granite surface, her voice barely audible as she remarked on the quality and attention to detail, and I smiled quietly to myself, feeling the satisfaction that comes not from proving someone wrong in words, but from allowing them to arrive at their own realization, guided gently by what they saw and experienced. The conversation shifted naturally as my parents began to ask questions about the choices I had made, curious about the selection of paint colors, the design of the garden, and the layout of the house, and I responded with enthusiasm, sharing small anecdotes of the challenges and joys of creating a home that truly reflected my vision and dedication, noticing that Linda's responses had softened, her earlier posture of superiority giving way to a more thoughtful and reflective demeanor. Outside, the garden had become the focal point, with the apple trees in full bloom and the roses releasing their fragrance into the evening air, and as we walked along the stone path, I could see Linda slowing her steps, clearly impressed by the harmony and care evident in every detail, and for the first time, I felt a quiet sense of victory that was entirely earned through patience, creativity, and perseverance. We ended the tour at the back patio, where comfortable seating and soft lighting created an inviting space for conversation, and as we all settled into the chairs, laughter returned, this time with genuine warmth and appreciation, the previous undercurrent of judgment replaced by acknowledgement of effort and taste, and I reflected on how the experience had subtly shifted dynamics within our family, showing that quietly achieving something meaningful and authentic can have a profound effect on perception and relationships, reinforcing the idea that careful planning, personal dedication, and thoughtful execution often speak louder than words, comparisons, or displays of superficial success, and in that moment, surrounded by my family in the home I had shaped with intention and care, I felt a deep and abiding sense of fulfillment, knowing that the respect and admiration earned through perseverance and attention to detail would linger far longer than any fleeting judgments of the past. As the evening progressed, the soft glow of the patio lights created a serene ambience that encouraged deeper conversation and connection, And I could feel the subtle shift in dynamics between Linda and me becoming even more apparent as she began to ask thoughtful questions about the design choices, the plants in the garden, and the little touches that made each room feel personal and welcoming rather than just elegant, and I answered with a calm enthusiasm, sharing the stories behind the framed photographs, the inspiration for the color schemes, and the reasons why each piece of furniture had been chosen with both comfort and style in mind. And I noticed that my parents were nodding appreciatively, their earlier amusement completely replaced by admiration for the dedication and attention to detail that had gone into creating this home. The gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming roses from the garden into the patio area, and I felt a sense of pride that was quiet yet profound, knowing that every hour spent planning, working, and envisioning this house had finally come to fruition in a way that was visible and meaningful to those I cared about most. And even Linda, who had previously appeared poised and confident, seemed to soften as she observed the intentionality behind every choice, the thoughtfulness that could only come from years of experience and a genuine desire to create a space that was both beautiful and lived in. Conversation flowed naturally as the sun set, turning the sky into shades of pink and gold that reflected off the windows and highlighted the textures of the brick and stone exterior. And I watched as Linda's initial hesitation transformed into a mixture of respect and curiosity, her body language less rigid and her smile more genuine, as if she was beginning to see me not just as her sister or as someone to compare herself with, but as a person who had quietly cultivated her own world with intelligence, taste, and care. I shared anecdotes about small successes and minor setbacks in renovating the kitchen, selecting the perfect lighting for the den, and finding heirloom furniture that complemented the modern updates, and each story seemed to draw my family closer, weaving a narrative that was personal, engaging, and undeniably authentic, and I could see that the laughter now shared was different from the laughter of earlier, filled with warmth, connection, and mutual appreciation rather than mockery or judgment. As the stars began to appear in the evening sky, the backyard glowed with subtle lanterns illuminating the pathways and garden beds, and we all lingered outside, enjoying the balance of natural beauty and human touch that had been created. And in those quiet moments I felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction, not only in the tangible results of my efforts but in the recognition that true achievement lies in thoughtful dedication and the ability to quietly inspire respect and admiration. And as I looked at Linda and my parents, I realized that the perception of value had shifted completely. The comparisons that once caused discomfort now transformed into an appreciation for authenticity, perseverance, and the understated yet undeniable power of creating something meaningful with patience, vision, and unwavering care. As twilight deepened, the colors of the sky softened into shades of lavender and deep blue, casting a gentle hue over the exterior of the house and illuminating the garden in a way that made the flowers and trees appear even more vibrant. And I guided my family toward the back porch, where a small table had been set with light refreshments and delicate floral arrangements, creating a cozy space for continued conversation and reflection on the tour they had just experienced, and I could sense the subtle shifts in their attitudes, the initial judgment and doubt replaced by genuine curiosity, appreciation, and admiration for the thoughtfulness that had gone into every corner of my home. Linda lingered near the edge of the patio, glancing at the meticulously maintained flower beds and the small orchard I had cultivated with care, and I observed her quietly, allowing her to absorb the details and realize that the beauty of a home extends beyond its size or the luxury of its furnishings, that there is value in intention, effort, and the personal stories woven into every space, and I could see that she was beginning to reflect on her previous assumptions, her posture softening, and her voice taking on a tone of respect as she asked questions about the selection of plants, the layout of the garden, and the process I had followed to create a cohesive and welcoming environment. My parents, seated comfortably at the table, exchanged glances that conveyed both pride and surprise. Their earlier laughter and teasing now transformed into an acknowledgement of the dedication, patience, and vision I had demonstrated, and I shared anecdotes of small challenges and moments of joy during the renovations, the selection of furniture, and the careful arrangement of art and personal mementos, highlighting the thought and care that had gone into making this house not only functional, but a true reflection of my values and aesthetic sensibilities. And I noticed that Linda nodded thoughtfully, occasionally adding her own insights or expressing admiration for specific choices, and I realized that this shift in perception was a quiet triumph, achieved not through confrontation or boasting, but through allowing the evidence of my work and character to speak for itself. As the conversation flowed, the warm evening air carrying the fragrance of roses and apple blossoms, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the hours of planning, effort, and patience had culminated in an experience that left a lasting impression on those who mattered most, and the shared moments of laughter, curiosity, and thoughtful dialogue created connections that were richer and more meaningful than any superficial comparison could ever provide, and in those moments, I understood that the respect and recognition I had quietly earned were far more enduring than the fleeting judgments of the past, that the home I had built was not merely a structure of walls and furnishings but a testament to perseverance, thoughtful intention, and the subtle power of allowing actions to reveal character and worth. And as the evening continued, the lights twinkling softly across the porch and garden, I could see that the harmony and authenticity of my space had inspired reflection, acknowledgement, and admiration, transforming the dynamics within the family, and reinforcing the quiet but profound lesson that genuine achievement, patience, and care always leave a lasting and meaningful impression. The evening air grew cooler as the sky deepened into a rich indigo, and the soft glow from the porch lights and garden lanterns bathed the backyard in a warm, inviting light, creating a sense of calm and reflection for everyone gathered. And I could feel the subtle shift in energy as Linda continued to observe the garden paths, the fruit trees, and the carefully arranged flower beds, her earlier tension replaced with a quiet admiration that seemed to deepen with every detail she took in, and I watched as my parents exchanged thoughtful glances, their expressions a mix of pride and recognition, acknowledging the patience, dedication, and vision that had transformed this house into a home that felt authentic, personal, and welcoming. Conversation naturally turned to stories about the process of creating the home. From selecting the perfect materials for the kitchen and living room to the hours spent planning the landscaping and arranging each piece of furniture to maximize both comfort and aesthetics, and I shared my reflections on the challenges, the moments of doubt, and the satisfaction of seeing each room come together in a way that reflected my taste and values, and I noticed that Linda was listening intently, her expressions shifting from surprise to genuine curiosity and engagement, as if she were discovering the depth of thought and care that went into every decision. The stars began to emerge overhead, twinkling softly in the clear night sky, while the gentle fragrance of blooming roses and apple blossoms filled the air, adding a layer of serenity and contentment to the atmosphere, and I felt a quiet sense of accomplishment knowing that the combination of thoughtful design, personal effort, and attention to detail had created a lasting impression on those who mattered most, reinforcing the idea that true success and recognition often come from consistent effort and genuine intention rather than outward displays of wealth or status. As the night continued, the laughter that had once been tinged with envy and skepticism evolved into moments of shared joy and connection, as we discussed favorite spaces, plans for future gatherings, and memories tied to various elements of the home. And I saw that Linda began to relax completely, her previous posture of superiority replaced by a sense of respect and reflection, acknowledging that the charm, warmth, and authenticity of a home come from thoughtful dedication and the personal touch of those who live within it. The gentle illumination from the patio lights highlighted the textures of the stone paths, the leaves of the fruit trees, and the blossoms in the garden, creating a sense of harmony and completeness. And I realized that this home was more than a place to live. It was a testament to the patience, creativity, and perseverance that I had invested over the years, a quiet yet powerful reminder that true achievement is measured not by comparisons or external validation but by the care, vision, and dedication that transform an ordinary space into something meaningful. And as I watched my family mingle, share smiles, and enjoy the evening together, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that the subtle yet undeniable impact of thoughtful effort had permanently shifted perceptions, strengthened connections, and left an impression of respect, admiration, and genuine appreciation that would endure far beyond this single night. The night had settled fully over the neighborhood, leaving the house bathed in the soft glow of porch lights and garden lanterns, and as my family continued to enjoy the serene atmosphere, I noticed that Linda's demeanor had completely transformed. Her earlier sense of competition and subtle superiority replaced by curiosity and genuine appreciation, as she carefully examined the layout of the patio, the alignment of the garden paths, and the thoughtful placement of outdoor furniture, all of which reflected the countless hours I had dedicated to making every corner both functional and aesthetically pleasing, and I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that my efforts were finally being acknowledged without the need for confrontation or boastful remarks. Conversation flowed naturally as we reminisced about past family gatherings and shared plans for upcoming holidays, the warmth and laughter of our interactions creating a comfortable rhythm that replaced any lingering tension. And I could see my parents leaning back in their chairs with expressions of pride and contentment, occasionally exchanging glances that conveyed their amazement at the transformation of the house and the depth of thought and care that had gone into each detail, from the elegant placement of the rugs and lamps indoors to the careful arrangement of roses and hydrangeas outdoors, and I shared small stories of the challenges I faced during the renovation, the moments of uncertainty, and the joy I experienced as I saw each room take shape according to my vision, providing insight into the patience, creativity, and perseverance that had driven the project. Linda asked questions about the design choices, the type of wood used for the floors, and the reasons behind the selection of particular furniture and decor pieces, and I answered with calm enthusiasm, explaining how each element was chosen to create a sense of warmth, harmony, and functionality, and I noticed her expression soften as she realized that beauty and value come not from mere opulence but from intention, dedication, and personal touch, and I could see that she was beginning to respect not only the home but also the effort and character behind its creation. The night air carried the gentle scent of apple blossoms and roses from the garden, enhancing the feeling of serenity and completion, and we spent time on the back deck sharing light refreshments while continuing to discuss favorite rooms, moments of creativity, and personal stories connected to the home, deepening our sense of connection and mutual understanding. And I realized that the subtle shift in perception and the genuine admiration now present among my family members represented a lasting change, one achieved not through words or confrontation but through the demonstration of dedication, thoughtfulness, and the quiet power of persistence. As the stars twinkled overhead and the night grew cooler, the gentle illumination from the lanterns cast soft shadows across the garden, highlighting the careful arrangement of flowers, shrubs, and trees, and I felt a profound sense of fulfillment knowing that my vision had been realized and my family's appreciation was authentic, reinforcing the lesson that patience, care, and thoughtful effort are often more impactful than immediate recognition or comparison. And as we continued to share stories, laughter, and reflections, I understood that the home I had created was more than a structure. It was a testament to perseverance, creativity, and the quiet influence of consistent, mindful action, leaving an enduring impression of respect, admiration, and connection that would linger far beyond this evening. The night had settled fully over the property, and the gentle hum of evening crickets combined with the soft rustle of leaves in the cool breeze created a peaceful backdrop for the continued gathering. And as I led my family back inside, the warm lighting and the inviting layout of the living areas encouraged a natural flow of conversation and reflection. And I could sense that the tension that had lingered at the start of the evening had completely dissipated, replaced by a sense of admiration and quiet respect for the care and intention evident throughout the home. Linda, who had initially entered with a sense of competitive pride, now moved slowly from room to room, noticing subtle details like the arrangement of heirloom furniture, the careful selection of paint colors that complemented both the architecture and the decor, and the thoughtfully placed photographs and artwork that told stories of family history and personal achievement. And I felt a deep satisfaction knowing that the message I had hoped to convey through patience, dedication, and subtle effort was being understood without words, as every glance, every pause, and every expression communicated recognition of my effort. My parents lingered in the kitchen area, asking questions about specific choices in appliances, finishes, and layout, and I responded with thoughtful explanations, sharing insights into how functionality, aesthetics, and comfort were balanced, and how every decision reflected years of planning, consideration, and care. And I noticed that Linda's curiosity was no longer tinged with comparison but with a genuine desire to understand, and her occasional smiles reflected an acknowledgement of the depth of work and the personal investment I had made. As we moved toward the den, where shelves lined with books and collections of mementos created a sense of history and continuity, the conversation turned to stories of past family moments, challenges overcome, and the satisfaction of completing projects that required patience and perseverance, and I could see that the familial atmosphere had shifted into one of warmth and shared understanding, with laughter that was sincere and inclusive rather than edged with judgment or envy. The back porch and garden, softly illuminated by lanterns and the subtle glow from the house, provided a serene setting where we paused to admire the landscape, including the apple trees in full bloom and the roses carefully nurtured over the years, and the gentle scent carried through the air enhanced the feeling of calm and reflection, reminding everyone present of the attention to detail and the deliberate effort that had shaped every aspect of the property. Linda asked more questions about the plant selections, layout decisions, and seasonal care, and I responded with stories that highlighted the importance of patience, foresight, and consistent effort, and I could see her expression shift to one of genuine appreciation, her earlier posture of rivalry softened by recognition of the skill and dedication required to achieve such harmony and beauty. My parents shared their pride openly, commenting on the thoughtfulness and authenticity of the home, and the sense of connection deepened as we discussed how each element reflected values, memories, and personal growth, and I realized that the evening had achieved exactly what I had hoped for, a subtle but profound change in perception that honored both effort and character, and reinforced the idea that thoughtful intention, consistent diligence, and authentic creation leave an enduring impression that far surpasses superficial displays or fleeting comparisons, and as we lingered together enjoying the final moments of the night, I felt a lasting satisfaction that the home I had built had communicated the message I wished to convey, earning respect, admiration, and connection in a way that words alone could never have achieved. By the time the evening was drawing to a close, the air had grown cooler, carrying the subtle scent of the garden and the distant sounds of the neighborhood settling into night, and I observed the softening expressions on my family's faces as they moved through the living room and kitchen one last time, taking in the details and memories that had been carefully preserved and enhanced throughout the home, and I felt a quiet sense of pride knowing that the patience, thoughtfulness, and effort invested over the years had not only transformed the space itself but had also reshaped perceptions and strengthened the bonds between us. Linda paused near the window, her gaze lingering on the garden illuminated by the gentle glow of lanterns, and she asked questions about the design choices and plant selections with a tone of genuine interest, her earlier air of competition replaced by curiosity and respect, and I answered with the calm confidence of someone who had devoted herself to creating something meaningful and authentic, sharing insights about each decision and the intention behind every arrangement, from the comfortable placement of seating areas to the harmonious integration of indoor and outdoor spaces. My parents, seated comfortably in the living room, reflected on the stories and explanations I provided, their admiration clear in their attentive listening and occasional nods of acknowledgement, and I realized that the laughter and conversation now carried a warmth that had been absent earlier in the day, a recognition that value and accomplishment are often revealed through dedication, patience, and thoughtful action rather than immediate comparison or superficial display. As we gathered our belongings to prepare for the end of the visit, the soft lighting cast long, gentle shadows across the rooms, highlighting the careful attention to detail and the personal touches that made the house feel lived in, welcoming, and deeply reflective of the care and vision invested in it, and I felt a deep satisfaction knowing that the home now stood as a testament to persistence, creativity, and the subtle yet powerful influence of thoughtful planning. Linda offered a sincere compliment, acknowledging the beauty and warmth of the home, and I felt a sense of fulfillment as I recognized the authenticity of her appreciation, understanding that true recognition often comes quietly, through observation and experience rather than through overt acknowledgement or competition. As the evening drew to a close, and the last goodbyes were exchanged, I stood in the foyer, reflecting on how this experience had transformed not only the perception of my efforts but also the relationships within the family, reinforcing the value of patience, deliberate action, and the quiet power of creating something meaningful with intention and care, and I knew that the impression left on my family would endure, a lasting testament to the thoughtful dedication and personal commitment that had shaped not just a house, but a home filled with authenticity, warmth, and respect.